Okay, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Petra Al-Sufi, and I am the Senior Outreach and Partnerships Manager at the Institute for Social Policy and Understanding. Thank you for choosing to spend your afternoon on a summer day with us to talk about Islamic schools. Clearly, this is a topic of passion for you. Otherwise, I'm sure there are other things that you could have been doing today. For those who are joining for the first time, I want to quickly introduce ISPU. We are a research organization, a research and education organization that have been around for 20 years doing research and education about American Muslims, for American Muslims and for everyone else who make decisions about our community, to ensure that all decisions are based on facts and well-researched information. Our research focuses on equipping American Muslims to build their institutions, to look at the challenges facing their community and solve them through facts and research, and to present the positive things that our community have been able to do, the resilience that we have in our community despite all the challenges that we face. Our research include a wealth of information on American Muslim youth, the challenges they face, the resiliency they exhibit, and the places they look to build as places where they could fully be themselves. It also includes research on institutions, and thus this topic comes the American Islamic schools. In our research, always look for partners who are experts in the field to ensure that we are working with those who are doing the work on the ground to not only inform the research that we conduct, the information that we present to our community, but to give them people that they could connect with after the research is done, so they could continue to be in connection with the experts in the field they're interested in. And so this research makes its way everywhere, from everyone here on this webinar today, parents, youth, teachers, administrators, to policymakers, and to the general public. And so with that, I want to introduce today's topic and introduce quickly my connection to the topic, and then I will introduce a few other people who will help us carry on today's conversation. This report, again, I want to thank our generous donors. It was supported by the Rustum Fund. I want to thank ISPU donors and supporters who support the work that we do beyond this project. And this report is co-published by the Institute for Social Policy and Understanding and the Islamic Schools League of America, ISLA, which you will hear from the representative in a little bit, and you will hear from their team members on the work they do on the ground every day. This report is also part of a larger project that ISLA is part of a larger ISLA's project, which is the database project, which again, you'll learn about it in a little bit. And this publication, as I mentioned, was made possible by generous support from the Rustum Fund. My personal connection to Islamic schools, just like many youth around the US, started by attending Islamic school. An Islamic school that was just, newly being established. And I will just quickly summarize my experience there, motivated me to do two things. One, to never become a full-time educator, and two, to find my own way of finding more about my own faith and the larger society that I live in. And so that's what motivated me to kind of stay connected to this topic and ensure that others around the country, especially as the American Muslim community grows, as more American Muslim families choose to send their schools to full-time Islamic schools, are equipped to make those decisions and have the best practices from the field to make these decisions. And so full-time schools in the US are maturing from the 20 years ago when I was attending them. And they are increasing, and more families are thinking about sending their kids to Islamic schools, even though the majority still do send them to the public school. So for example, it is estimated that more than 80% of US full-time Islamic schools have achieved or actively seeking accreditation, which we'll learn about that a little bit more. And growing number of Islamic school educators have a bachelor degree in education or other credentials that prepare them for their jobs. That's a different from the volunteer educators that I had in my Islamic school. Yeah, Islamic schools are also prone to one of the top challenges facing education institutions nationwide: hiring and retaining qualified teachers. In recent research project, as I mentioned, ISLA and ISPU, we found that a quarter of Islamic schools struggle with retaining qualified teachers. Additionally, while more than half of the schools indicate it was easier to hire teachers or to find teachers for Islamic studies, for Quran, for Arabic, over 70% of the schools found hiring teachers for math, English, language arts, and other subjects to be more difficult. So this report will give us more insight into that landscape. We'll look at the landscape of teacher compensation, physician vacancies, and teacher retention in full-time schools. And of course, we'll hear from the experts on what we need to do to ensure that we're preparing not only educators, but administrators, schools on to how to get to that goal, and also what to do in the meantime while we're trying to find investment in these institutions. And so that's a little bit about me in this report. The Q&A box at the bottom is activated for you to use throughout the webinar to submit your questions about this report or other reports related to Islamic schools. Feel free to send messages to the panelists. And I would like now to introduce Dr. Shaza Khan, who is the report co-author and the executive director of the Islamic School League of America, to introduce ISLA and the database project. Welcome, Dr. Shaza. I'm going to stop sharing and hand it over to you.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Sister Petra, can you see my screen?
No, please share it again.
Okay. Well, I am Shaza Khan. I'm the Executive Director of the Islamic School League of America, and it's a pleasure here to be with you all and to welcome you all to this co-hosted webinar between ISLA and the ISPU. The Islamic Schools League of America is an organization that's been around for over 20 years, supporting full-time Islamic schools, particularly in the United States, but increasingly internationally as well through many of our different programs. We support over 300 full-time Islamic schools here in the United States, which serve approximately 60,000 Muslim students, K through 12 nationwide. And we connect directly with Islamic school educators, such as principals, board members, and teachers. We engage in research, we provide resources, and we try to develop relationships with our educators, as well as the growing Islamic school educational community. And those organizations that also do work, such as ISPU, that would benefit our organization. Petra, are you now able to see my screen?
Yes.
Awesome, great. So here you see the graphic just representing Islamic Schools League of America. We invite you to reach out to us if this is the first time you are hearing about us. And for those of you who typically attend our monthly admin meetings, which take place on the third Wednesday of the month, I see you here in the participants. Jazakallah khairan. One of the things that ISLA does in terms of establishing relationships and keeping a close kind of pulse on what's happening in Islamic schools is hosting different kinds of PLCs and professional learning communities that allow us to connect with one another, learn from one another, ask questions. And alhamdulillah, it's a pleasure to welcome you all here. I want to tell you a little bit about the ISLA database project, which is it's the larger umbrella from which the report that you'll be hearing more about was derived. So when ISLA was created about 25 years ago, one of the key issues at that time, and even now, was that there wasn't a lot of data easily accessible or known about Islamic schools. Many Islamic schools were opening and then shortly thereafter closing. And one of the things that our founders wanted to do was to be able to create a culture of data-informed decision-making. And so ISLA, from its very inception, began collecting data about Islamic schools, really soliciting our Islamic school educators. Many of you yourselves who are joining us today participated in the survey that has made this seminal report possible. And for several years, Dr. Seema Imam is here with us, who was serving as the chairperson of ISLA, was really pushing ISLA to get back into that database and renew our commitment to collecting that data by administering surveys with administrators of Islamic schools so that we can have a better picture of what's happening in Islamic schools. And so one of the products that you'll be hearing about today is this survey that we engaged in. And this report is one of, inshallah, many reports that we'll be publishing. This one is co-published with ISPU and many more that we'll be engaging in and publishing for you to be able to, hopefully, inshallah, create more data-informed decision-making. So, jazakumullah khairan to everybody for joining us. I failed to say the dua out loud. Rabbish sadri. Oh, now the nerves are getting to me, alhamdulillah. ربش قال ربش اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. And we just want to begin with Allah's name. And again, I look forward to hearing from all of our esteemed presenters about this topic. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sada Khan, for this introduction and for this partnership. And I know this is just the beginning of what this report in this larger database project will enable American Islamic schools to move to the next phase and do best practices in the field and hopefully serve our students and families. So next, I want to bring Nicole Stewart String, who analyzed this data for us and co-author of this report. She brings more, and all of the speakers, I'm just briefly introducing them. Their full bios will be in the chat, so please look for full introductions there. Nicole brings more than a decade of experience in social science research and analytics into her work of data storytelling to her clients, where she makes data-informed decisions. She has extensive experience in primary data collection, quantitative and qualitative methodologies, and complex analysis. Nicole is passionate about understanding the human experience and has spent her career using data to uncover insight and to determine how to make human journey a little easier. Nicole is a certified project management professional, PMP, with experience managing numerous research projects. Nicole, please walk us through the project or the report finding.
Hi, thank you so much for the introduction. It's an absolute pleasure to be here with you all today. I want to make sure that you're able to see my screen. Petra, is that showing?
Yes.
Perfect. So during this time together, you and I will have some time to talk about the study and the key findings. And then there is a wonderful panel here for discussion and Q&A. So to dive right in, why this study? Islamic education in the United States is experiencing significant growth. Enrollment is increasing, and schools are expanding their campuses nationwide. The Islamic Schools League of America reports nearly 300 full-time Islamic schools, serving an estimated 60,000 to 70,000 K-12 students. However, as private institutions, Islamic schools face unique challenges. Without public funding, they must develop sustainable financial models to support growth and offer competitive salaries and provide adequate benefits to educators. Many of these schools rely heavily on tuition and fundraising, which can lead to difficulties in attracting and retaining qualified staff. Research shows that high teacher and administrative turnover can negatively impact student achievement and overall success. Therefore, while Islamic schools are growing, they must address these financial and staffing challenges to ensure long-term sustainability and educational quality. This report examines teacher compensation, recruitment, and retention in U.S. full-time Islamic schools. We identify factors that attract and retain qualified educators and offer recommendations for teachers, administrators, policymakers, and the broader community to support teacher recruitment and retention efforts. Between November 23rd, 2022 and June 6th of 2023, ISLA conducted the Islamic School Profile Survey, part of their database project, which is aimed to explore and gain a deeper understanding of the landscape and trends of full-time Islamic schools in the US. The survey was distributed to full-time Islamic schools in at least 39 states and the District of Columbia. A total of 104 schools from 30 states completed the questionnaire. The survey was completed by administrators at the schools who had access to and knowledge of enrollment, salary, demographic information, and other school data. Our analysis focused on 4 key outcomes related to teacher compensation and staffing in Islamic schools. The first is teacher salary. We looked at an average annual compensation for full-time teachers across elementary, middle, and high school grades. To provide context, we benchmarked our salary data against the national averages from the National Center of Education Statistics, known as NCES, which gives us both a national perspective and regional comparisons. We also looked at available benefits. We examined 8 potential benefits, including health insurance, tuition discounts, retirement plans, and professional development opportunities. We also looked at teacher recruitment. Here we assessed the difficulty in filling various teaching positions for the 2022-2023 academic year. Teacher retention was also measured, and this was measured as a percentage of teachers who stayed at their schools between the 2021-2022 and 2022-2023 academic years. We then analyzed, I'm moving the screen and I skipped. Going back, sorry. We then analyzed how these 4 outcomes related to 2 main categorical factors. The first being schools' financial resources. For this, we included operating budget, and the annual revenue from tuition, fundraising, and grants. The second kind of category we're looking at is school characteristics. We looked at factors such as accreditation status, enrollment numbers, teacher-to-student ratios, leadership stability, staffing levels, and teacher qualifications. All right, so let's dive into our findings. Let's begin this discussion by describing our measures of teacher salary that we use for benchmarking. So we talked about in the methodology that we use the 2022 national average wages by grade level from the National Center of Education Statistics, NCES. Their estimates are based on data combined by the Occupational Employment and Wage Statistics, which blends pay for both public and private school teachers across the United States. Across all grade levels, teachers are making about $66,000 annually on average. Elementary school teachers are paid the least, and this was consistent across all regions in the US. There is, however, a notable regional difference in overall teacher pay. Northeast teachers have the highest wages, earning approximately $7,000 more than Western teachers, $17,000 more than Midwestern teachers, and $22,000 more than Southern teachers. We know from other NCS data that private school teachers are making, on average, about 75% of what public school teachers are making overall. But we're unable to get private school teacher wages at the same state level estimates for benchmarking in our report. So this is why we went with the blended public and private school data so that we could get those state and regional comparisons. When we zoom into the salaries reported in the survey, we see that full-time Islamic school teachers earn approximately 60% of the average wages reported by the NCES for public and private school teachers. For example, Where the average elementary school teacher is paid approximately $65,000, the full-time Islamic elementary school teachers in our study are paid on average approximately $36,000. Where the average high school teacher is paid more than $67,000 on average, the full-time Islamic high school teacher in our study are paid on average about $41,000. The trends in pay by grade level in Islamic schools are consistent with what we found in the national data. Elementary school teachers are paid the least. But what is interesting here is that when we divide Islamic school salaries into categories of low, mid, and high, we find the most variation at the middle school level. Islamic middle school teachers are paid at one end of the spectrum or the other. For instance, 40% of middle school teachers are paid in the lowest salary band, compared to only 31% of elementary school teachers and 29% of high school teachers. Conversely, 37% are paid at the highest salary band, compared to 25% of elementary school teachers and 29% of high school teachers. A school's financial resources are strongly related to the compensation of teachers in that school. By the very nature of their resource availability, better funded schools can offer more competitive salaries. We explored two indicators of financial resources in our report: annual operating budget and annual revenue. Both of these indicators are significantly correlated with teacher salaries in Islamic schools. Schools with high operating budgets pay their teachers nearly $7,600 more on average than other Islamic schools. Schools with high annual revenue pay their teachers an additional $8,700 on average. We also look at the relationship between other school factors and teacher pay. One of these factors where we saw a correlation is in the number of teachers at the school. So schools with more teachers tend to offer higher salaries. For instance, 42% of schools with 30 or more teachers report high average salaries, compared to only 22% of schools with 10 or fewer teachers reporting high salaries. Larger schools are more likely to offer competitive pay and often also have higher financial resources overall than smaller schools. Another notable school characteristic is the ratio of full-time to part-time teachers in the school. Schools with fewer full-time teachers tend to offer lower salaries to their full-time teachers. For instance, 73% of schools with less than a 2-to-1 ratio of full-time to part-time teachers pay full-time teachers in the lowest salary range. In contrast, only 29% of schools with more than 7 full-time teachers to every 1 part-time teacher pays full-time teachers in the lowest salary range. We also see a relationship between some of the teacher credentials in elementary and middle school. We explored various types of credentialing, including state certifications, bachelor's degrees in education, any graduate degree, and additional or what we might call alternative types of credentialing. Only a few of these credentials were associated with teacher pay, and none of them mattered for high school pay. One area that we see this relationship play out is in schools where more than half of elementary school teachers have a bachelor's degree in education. Islamic schools where more than half of the elementary school teachers have a bachelor's degree in education pay about $4,100 more than schools where half or fewer of the elementary school teachers have that credential. For elementary school teachers, pay is also higher in schools where teachers have any additional or alternative credentialing. Islamic schools where elementary school teachers have any additional credentials pay elementary school teachers nearly $4,800 more than schools where none of the elementary school teachers have additional credentials. We also see these relationships play out in middle schools, where more than half of the teachers have state certification, a bachelor's degree in education, or a master's degree. In schools where more than half of middle school teachers have state certification, their salaries are nearly $7,100 higher compared to schools where 50% or fewer of these teachers have state certification. Similarly, in schools where more than half of middle school teachers have a bachelor's degree in education, the salaries for these teachers are nearly $4,300 higher than schools where 50% or fewer of these teachers hold a degree in this field. Additionally, in schools where more than half of middle school teachers have master's degree, their salaries are about $5,100 higher than in schools where 50% or fewer of these teachers hold this degree. We understand that benefits are a key part of the full compensation package. And in the report, we explore both the relationship between teacher salary and benefits offered by the school, as well as look at the relationship between the benefits offered and the financial resources and characteristics of the school. Schools that pay their teachers more offer more benefits on average, which seems to align. In schools where the average teacher salaries are at the top of the scale, 69% offer 6 or more benefits, where only 22% of schools with low salaries offer a similar benefits package. The Islamic schools that participated in the survey provided their staff with an average of 5 employee benefits during the 2022-2023 school year. And I will note here that it's 5 of the 8 or 9 that were on the list that they could choose from. So there may have been schools that were offering more, but we had a list that they were choosing from. Where we see the biggest difference in the types of benefits, or where we see the biggest difference is in the types of benefits that are offered. The vast majority of schools offer professional development, paid sick leave, and employee tuition discounts. 56% of participating Islamic schools provide paid vacation leave to their staff. Fewer than half of the schools offer health insurance, with only 47% providing this benefit. And just over a quarter of schools, or 29%, provide paid family leave to their staff. When examining the types of benefits provided and teacher pay, we find a positive relationship between the level of pay and both health insurance and retirement plans. 66% of schools with high teacher salaries offer health insurance, while only 30% of schools with a low teacher salary offer this benefit. 52% of schools with high teacher salaries offer retirement plans, while only 11% of schools with low teacher salaries offer this benefit. School financial resources also appear to matter for some of the employee benefits that are offered. The proportion of schools that offer health insurance, retirement plans, and sick leave increases as we move from schools with low to mid-range to high operating budgets. However, the relationship between employee tuition discounts and operating budgets is less straightforward. The highest proportion of schools offering employee tuition discounts are those with mid-range operating budgets. Mid-range operating budgets are defined as between $500,000 and $1.9 million. We posit that tuition discounts are likely a way for schools to relieve financial burdens for their employees without adding to their operating expenses. We also see this positive relationship between school financial resources and some offered benefits when we explore the school's annual revenue. The highest proportion of schools offering health insurance, retirement plans, paid sick leave, and continuing education have high annual revenue. Most notably here, while only 47% of participating Islamic schools offer health insurance, 91% of those with high annual revenue offer this benefit. Paid sick leave, which is one of the most reported benefits, reported by 88% of participating Islamic schools, is only offered in 69% of schools with low annual revenue. When it comes to school characteristics, we find only one key relationship with benefit type, and that is the number of students enrolled in the school. U.S. Islamic schools with a larger number of students offer more benefits than smaller schools. Schools with mid-range and high student enrollment are more likely to offer health insurance, retirement plans, paid sick leave, and continuing education reimbursement than schools with lower student enrollment. For instance, only 15% of schools with low student enrollment provide health insurance, compared to 70% with high student enrollment. We posit that schools with higher student enrollment likely have the tuition, fees, and donor support that allow for them to invest in this type of employee well-being. Hiring qualified teachers continues to be a nationwide issue for schools. We explored the level of difficulty for Islamic schools in filling teacher vacancies across subjects. For the Islamic schools that participated in the study, recruiting for the core subjects of math and English language arts is particularly hard. 34% of schools reported that it was very difficult, or that they were ultimately unable to fill their open math positions. Similarly, 33% of schools reported that it was very difficult, or that they were ultimately unable to fill their open language arts positions. There are few relationships between teacher compensation and filling position vacancies, and where they do exist, the relationship is complicated. Schools providing the highest average salaries for teachers had the most difficult time filling English language arts vacancies. Only 14% of high salary schools said it was easy to fill these positions. In contrast, 35% of mid-range salaried schools and 32% of low salary schools reported that filling these positions was easy. We see a similar complexity in the relationship between the number of benefits offered and the ease of filling English language arts vacancies in Islamic schools. Schools with a lower number of benefits had an easier time filling these vacancies. 37% of schools with 4 or fewer benefits said it was easy to fill the position, while only 10% of schools with 6 or more benefits said that filling the position was easy. While we know that there's a complicated relationship between recruitment and compensation, we're not able to determine why this relationship exists with our survey data. When looking at these findings, it's important to keep in mind that the ease and difficulty are a matter of perception, and there may be differences in how schools with varying resources operationalize their recruitment challenges. The final outcome that we're going to explore today is teacher retention. 75% of participating Islamic schools retained more than 3/4 of their teaching staff between the 2021-22 and 2022-23 school year. Conversely, 1/4 of schools saw high teacher turnover. Compensation plays a crucial role in retaining Islamic school teachers. Many teachers initially enter the field driven by a passion for Islamic education, but long-term retention is heavily influenced by salary and benefits. Schools offering higher salary levels have shown higher retention rates among their teaching staff. For instance, 86% of schools with high levels of teacher pay retain more than 3/4 of their teaching staff. In contrast, only 59% of schools with lower levels of teacher pay achieve similar retention rates. This highlights the importance of competitive compensation packages and sustaining a stable teaching workforce within Islamic schools. Similarly, the availability of benefits significantly impacts teacher retention in Islamic schools. Schools offering more benefits show higher retention rates among their teaching staff. For example, 88% of schools providing 6 or more benefits reported higher teacher retention. In contrast, only 69% of schools offering 4 or fewer benefits achieve this high teacher retention. Specific benefits such as health insurance, paid sick leave, and continuing education are associated with higher retention rates. This underscores the role of a comprehensive benefits package in promoting stability and retention within Islamic schools. And those are just a brief overview of our findings. I'll pass it back to Petra.
Thank you so much, Nicole, for sharing the data with us. There's a lot there for us to think about. And the good thing is you and me don't have to do it alone. We have a panel of experts that are going to help us have a better understanding of what we just heard and go a little bit beyond that. So help me welcome our panel of experts. I'm going to start with Dr. Seema Imam, who currently serves as the National Louis University, serves at the National Louis University as a tenured professor in the School of Teacher Preparation. At the university level, Dr. Imam has served as a co-chair of the University Leadership Council, chair of the Faculty Senate, and co-chair of the Diversity and Inclusion Council, as well as many other committees and programs. Dr. Seema teaches in the elementary, middle level, and special education Masters of Art in teaching programs. She has a passion for teaching with technology and meeting the needs of all students, with special focus on teacher preparation that meets the needs of all multicultural students. Dr. Imam has been involved in education, especially Islamic education, for decades, including being a mentor of the ISLA Leadership Academy. She has served as a chair of the board of directors of ISLA, and she co-founded one of the largest Islamic schools in the US and has been engaged in Islamic education for nearly 3 decades. We also have Ms. Sofia Azmat, who is the executive director of CISNA. She has served as the Islamic education community for over 25 years as a teacher, school leader, leadership coach, education consultant, and so much more. Ms. Azmat has served as an accreditation team for schools, Islamic as well as non-Islamic schools throughout the country. She has served on the ISNA Education Forum Program Committee and is an education consultant whose workshops include bullying prevention, critical thinking, effective communication, leadership development, and positive school climate. She has also served on many boards and committees nationally. We also have Dr. Samara Al-Mujaida with ISLA. She is ISLA's research project manager, where she oversees the projects like the ISLA Database Project and Crisis Management Toolkit. With expertise in Islamic science and organizational leadership, she contributes to the teaching, administration, and research in Islamic schools. Additionally, as an educational consultant, she specializes in curriculum development and serves as a certified evaluator for school accreditation. And then finally, we have Mr. Habib Qadri, who is the superintendent of MCC Academy in Illinois. He's an educator, author, and youth activist, and he has a bachelor's in teaching of history, and a master's in school administration. His involvement with the youth include working with MENA, Muslim Youth of North America, publishing books on American Muslim youth. He have lectured throughout the United States, Canada, and abroad, where currently he is actually joining us from abroad, on Islam, society, and social problems confronting Muslim youth in the community at large, including workshops for the U.S. Department of Education, weekend and full-time schools, public schools, and universities. He has authored many books on Muslim youth, as I mentioned, and in 2019, he became the first Muslim school principal to be named a national distinguished principal by the National Association of Elementary School Principals. So with this panel, you could see easily each one of them could give a couple-hour lecture on this topic, but we have limited time, so I'm going to jump into the questions that I have prepared for them, and we'll start Dr. Sima Imam. So Dr. Sima, as a professor of teachers education and a lifelong educator, can you summarize the progress of teachers education in the Islamic school setting and how, in the absence of proper compensation, professional development and training can be used as an incentive in retaining teachers today?
Thank you, Petra. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. And thank you, Nicole, for the presentation. I really appreciate listening to all those statistics. I'm appreciative also of being with you today. Certainly this topic is dear to my heart. We have a lot of progress that's been made. I'll try to summarize part of it. My experience goes back to the 1990 summer when we were staffing the Universal School in Bridgeview, Illinois, one of the largest Islamic schools, and we found one certified teacher other than myself. I was certified in education and also in leadership. Well, I've worked with Sunday school and full-time schools for almost 5 decades and have been a professor for 30 years, a principal for 5, and taught in Chicago Public Schools for 16 years. As of now, in 2024, we recognize that we've made tremendous progress with many, many well-qualified thinkers in the Islamic school field. Not all of them come to the classroom, but we have a strong body of licensed teachers now compared to the early 90s. So teacher preparation itself, since the pandemic happened especially, has altered significantly, and every teacher anywhere, everywhere, has a new set of challenges and a new skill set that is required. So in Islamic schools, as the data shows, one of the biggest challenges is compensation. We're not able to attract and retain those freshly minted masters and doctorate level educators, those who are licensed, in order to build the strongest Islamic schools, but we do our best. And as a lifelong learner myself, I always say, be a reader, whether you're a teacher or a leader, and do as much PD as you can. Yet, in spite of that development, the question is how to make progress in teacher education within our Islamic school community. And how to attract teachers who can do the best work and build the best environment, then how to retain them. From the data, we see a lot of turnover. We saw some big numbers, and any of them we could repeat, but I won't. To some extent, the pandemic has worsened a lot of aspects across the nation for everyone. And so when we think about that, we need more licensed and advanced degree holders in our classrooms. And how do we attract and retain them? Well, first of all, because we're struggling to do that, our schools still have, I think Petra was mentioning her own experience with no formal licensure or classroom practice. We still have some, and we have some who've not studied Islam at all. Yet we have wonderful, strong, dedicated Muslim teachers who are with the best of intentions. Still the direction that we need to go toward at this time is for teachers to have both formal Islamic studies education and educational licensure. So since we strive to deliver an Islamic worldview in our schools, we strive to have teachers trained in that area as well. Who is best suited for Islamic schooling? One who has a Quranic worldview themselves, one who is a lifelong learner and takes seriously their own learning agenda. So we have teachers now coming through organized programs like Bayan, like the Bayan Graduate Theological Program, or Qalam Institute, or Zaytuna. In fact, I teach a course at Bayan entitled Instructional Strategies and Critical Perspectives for Islamic Schools in the 21st Century. And we cover the current struggles of Islamic education and renewal of our schools that are now beginning to be 35 or so years old. We use the text with chapters by many contemporary Islamic educators, including my own chapter, called Curriculum Renewal for Islamic Education. This isn't an advertisement. It offers a realistic, detailed approach to what we can do to continue to build strong schools. To move to part 2 of the question, in the absence of proper compensation, how can professional development and training be used as incentive to retaining teachers today? Well, in the meantime, until we get things the way we want them and we have schools with better, financial circumstances, we can offer PD and we can ask teachers of all subjects to continue learning. But I don't see that as the biggest part of the solution. We sometimes see that teachers are asked to pay for their own PD or their own degree, advancing themselves in professional coursework. It can strengthen the schools when teachers have more complete preparation, but the compensation is still necessary to really retain the best teachers, in my opinion. However, there is one factor that is highly significant and that we continue to find ourselves seeing the results of, and that is when teachers are happy and satisfied when they're in an Islamic environment. When we stop for prayer and we can constantly apply Islamic teaching. So creating a sacred learning environment is another key to retention. And that means professional development that shows us how to build Islamic environments that value learning, that inculcate awe and wonder and incorporate accountability and so on. This will help us retain strong Muslim faculty members. There is PD around principles of Islamic pedagogy. The credit goes, of course, to Memon and Ajam, principles of Islamic pedagogy, but this is also part of the graduate course that I teach at Bayan. Schools can also access professional development on a continuous basis at a reasonable rate through ISLA and CISNA and other sources. We can send 3 or 4 teachers to take the same course so they come back and implement things. This can help when teachers are feeling good about their classroom and they're part of building, certain important aspects. Many teachers will never be able to afford that degree program. So schools can pay for those programs for faculty development. Of course, we know that happy teachers will undoubtedly do the best work. Compensation that provides teachers with respect and dignity, and these are essential. Respect and dignity in their life means that they can afford to live and raise their families. Many teachers leave in order to adequately provide the necessities for their own children. Even with broken hearts, they leave because they have to prepare to pay college tuition for their children. So building up the compensation for Islamic education is our future. Education is the key, the best investment we can possibly make. In closing, we need teachers who can address current challenges. This is big. The Quranic worldview has a place in modern society, where the issues of the modern world have Islamic solutions. And we need teachers who can stamp out racism in Islamic schools. We need strong technology tools for digital teaching, as well as awareness and preparation towards the challenges of gender identity and sexual orientation. We need to provide professional development that is relevant and that teachers feel is relevant, that they will benefit from it, that it's something they're interested in, such that it includes strong instructional strategies for engaging students for learning in the 21st century, for active, not passive learning. I'm convinced we're on a track that is encouraging, and just remind us all to keep up the pace, continue to build the best Islamic schools, ones that will build the desirable foundation for the future. We have indeed come a very long way. So we have to think about how far we've come and then see the light at the end of the tunnel. So many schools are compensating teachers well, and we just have to all try to keep the goal in mind. Thank you so much, Petra. Turn it back to you.
Thank you so much for walking us through this journey very briefly. I know there's a lot more to share here, but thank you for giving us this comprehensive look. I'm going to switch to Safia Azmat to talk to us a little bit about the accreditation process. You represent the U.S. accreditation body for Islamic schools. What does that mean anyway, for those who don't know? And can you discuss accreditation best practices for recruiting and retaining qualified teachers, funding such positions in schools, and if you have time, evaluate the evaluation process?
Thank you, Patria. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Really appreciate the opportunity to discuss this really very critical issue. I want to thank Dr. Seema for addressing so many of the things that I know we're all probably wanted to touch upon, and you've done a really great job of that. So that part I won't have to go into too much. But let me talk a little bit about CISNA and accreditation. So CISNA is a membership organization of Islamic schools and Islamic educational institution organizations, such as some professional development organizations that are members of CISNA. Every school, every member has a voice and a vote, and you can find out more about CISNA at cisnausa.org. I believe something was put into the chat box. Our areas of focus are accreditation, professional development, especially governance training, advocacy, and networking. And accreditation specifically, it's a process that ensures that schools are meeting high standards of education, governance, and operational excellence. It provides a framework. It's not a prescriptive set of standards, but we provide a framework that supports continuous improvement and accountability, which again, I heard Dr. Seema mention, so I appreciate that you mentioned that, Dr. Seema. The CISNA standards were first developed in 2012 when we partnered with what is now known as Cognia. It used to be called Advanced Ed. It's one of the largest international accrediting agencies in the world. And we're also now partnered with Middle States Association, also an international accrediting agency. CISNA is also recognized by the New York State Education Department. It's one of the largest in the United States. And we're considered a lead partner. What that means is because we've gone through the process of aligning our standards, a school that goes through the accreditation process with CISNA, if they become a member of these other two organizations, Middle States or Cognia, they can get dual accreditation. And the CISNA accreditation standards are focused on 4 areas. The first is governance. The second is school administration. The third is teaching and learning. And the fourth is school culture and environment. But teaching and teachers play a role in each one of these standards. The teachers really are the heart of the school. The quality of teachers does determine the quality of teaching. Yes, governance and administration play an important role, but without the teachers, you have no school. So recruiting and retaining qualified teachers, Dr. Seema mentioned that quite a bit already, and I know some of the my colleagues who speak after me will mention some of that as well, as how to retain those teachers. But there's there's the importance of benefit packages, PD, opportunities for leadership within the school for teachers. So they have a way to grow. They know that if they stay, they're not just going to be teaching 4th grade forever, but there's other things they can do. They can take on some leadership roles. But in terms of recruiting, yes, it's a challenge for all schools, not just Islamic schools. We have a smaller pool to choose from if we want to have Muslim teachers. And, we see that parents ask for the best teachers for their children, but we don't have parents. We have few parents, I would say, who encourage their children to become teachers. There's an issue there, right? I'm being asked quite often, I get phone calls saying, do you have recommendations for principals? We're looking for a head of school, and we're looking for teachers. We're looking for qualified teachers. Well, what does that mean to be qualified, first of all? Most schools are looking for teachers who have bachelor's degrees, they have certification perhaps, they have experience, they have content knowledge in the subject that they're looking for the teacher to teach. But what I tell them is you're not going to find that package. What you need to do is to find someone who has the heart for it. If you find that, if a teacher wants to be there, if they want to work with children, they may not have a teaching certificate. I didn't have teaching certification when I first began to teach, but my school supported me to go and become certified, to take that time that I needed to attend classes and so on. So you find someone who has the character, who wants to teach, and you nurture the rest. So that, we talked about that school environment that you create for them, that makes them stay, even if you may not be paying them as much as you should be. We recommend that, at least try for 80% of what the public schools in your state or in your district are paying teachers. So we do have to work on changing the mindset in our communities. We have to respect the teaching profession. Yes, they have to make a decent salary, but teaching is a noble profession. The Prophet ﷺ was a teacher, first and foremost. And we're not always giving teachers the respect that we should. I hear from teachers when we go out to make accreditation visits, their schools, teachers will say that administration doesn't have their back. Parent comes to complain and administration doesn't always support them. So we have to be doing that. We've all heard about how Finland is doing so well in terms of the teaching profession, how happy teachers are and how well paid they are. It's not just the schools that are doing this, it's the whole community mindset. So it's a whole country, really. So we have to, raise awareness about the importance of respecting the teaching profession. So when parents come in, and also to tell our kids, I'll tell you one thing that I've heard many of our schools doing now is they're encouraging their graduates to go into the teaching profession by giving them scholarship so that they have some access to colleges, and when they come back, they'll when they finish, they'll teach. And if they don't, then they can repay that as a loan, interest free. So I think that's a great initiative. I believe there's a school in Florida that was doing that. And I think that someone might be in the audience who's done something like this. Funding for teachers to be paid well, that is something that's a responsibility of the community and the board. The board's responsibility is to ensure the legal and financial health of a school. This topic is an entire webinar by itself. What CISNA has done is we've conducted governance training sessions. We had one in Florida, we had one in Dallas, and one of the topics that we cover is financial sustainability. So I would recommend that school board members avail themselves of this kind of training. You can find out more about the CISNA training at our website or by contacting us, but really this is something our board members really have to focus on. The compensation of teachers, finding diverse funding sources. It could be from grants, community donations, endowments. It's not just about having fundraising dinners. So I know that's like the go-to that schools go to, The last point I want to make about evaluating the process, something that our accreditation standards really address in all the four standards, and specifically for teachers, how to make sure that they receive mentoring, professional development, that there's onboarding for teachers, there's timely feedback, there's professional learning communities, as Dr. Seema also mentioned. They have time in their day to sit with other teachers to work on lesson plans, that the administrators observe them at their professional practice and give them timely feedback. That's very important. And accreditation requires the school to demonstrate sound financial practice, to ensure funds are allocated effectively, prioritize teacher compensation. There's funding for resources that directly impact student learning. And we ask that all schools engage in getting feedback from their communities. That is going to help a school to determine, collecting that data. And thank you, Shazaf, and all of you at ISPU for emphasizing the importance of collecting and analyzing data to drive improvement, to drive decision-making. Our accreditation standards ask for that as well. So I think accreditation is a great framework to support Islamic schools in terms of recruiting and retaining qualified teachers, but in general, improving school improvement, because it holds the school accountable. And Islamically, that's something we have to do. I believe there's a hadith about, holding yourself accountable. So accreditation kind of forces a school to do that. So I would just in closing, I would emphasize that accreditation is really important for a school to be able to do all the things that, Dr. Seema mentioned, that I know my colleagues after me are going to mention about the importance of what a school must do to improve the quality of our schools for our students. And a main focus of that is recruiting and retraining good teachers. Thank you, Petra.
Thank you so much for all of this. A couple points stuck out to me from the previous comments. One, we've come a long way in our Islamic schools journey here in the US. Two, it's almost refreshing to know that some of the challenges we face in Islamic schools are not unique to Islamic schools, that we're facing them in the education system, nationwide. I think what's worth pointing out is we do have an Islamic model to address some of these challenges, creating a culture, an Islamic culture, and valuing the teaching field in those who are educators, and having the whole community kind of back that up. And then the third thing that stood out to me is, in order to address a lot of the challenges that we face in the Islamic schools, but also in society and for our youth, the emphasis is on professionalization of the setting in of the field, in making sure that, you know, we know what the standards are and we're working toward meeting them. So two more panelists that will share a couple more things that will help us with today's conversation. I want to ask Dr. Samar Al-Mujahida. There's a lot of data that we just heard. There's a lot of information here. You work closely with schools across the country and internationally. Can you share a little bit with us on how the specific report will be used to address the gap between the best practices that we just heard about and that, you know, exists in the field and that in the current reality on the ground regarding compensation, recruitment, retention, and some of the other issues in the full-time Islamic schools? Dr. Samar.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah, everyone. Thank you, Petra, and thank you, Dr. Seema, Dr. Shazza, and Sister Sophia for a great presentation, and Nicole, of course, for taking us through the statistics. And actually, they covered a lot of what I was planning to say in this 7 minutes. I'm giving 7 minutes, but I would like to start with why is this report very important? And we know this report is based on the Islamic Schools Profile Survey, part of the database project, ISLA database project that launched end of 2021. And it lays a solid foundation for future research and provides a unique and one-of-a-kind insights into understanding a wide range of school characteristics, including student demographics, enrollments, teaching and learning, staffing, finance and operations, and leadership. So let's dive into how can we use this report on a practical level. While we know Islamic schools might be unable to align salaries and benefit packages with national averages for public and private schools, but at least they can ensure that they do not fall below the average within Islamic schools in their state and region. This alignment is essential for attracting and retaining highly qualified teachers. But like Sister Sophia mentions, it's worth noting that teacher recruitment and retention challenges is not unique to Islamic schools, and it's also evident across the nation. It is essential to address this problem with data-driven strategies, particularly in looking into other ways to retain qualified teachers beyond financial and benefit packages, something school leaders can influence directly. Because we, as from my previous experience as a school principal, I don't have a full influence on budget. And like Sister Sophia mentioned, a very key information that the recruitment and the funding fall within the community and the board responsibility. So what can we do on the level of school administration? So in my dissertation, I examined factors that impact retention and job satisfaction. And the findings really were eye-opening and confirms what it's been listed by the presenters. And it highlights top 3 school characteristics that positively influence teacher retention and job satisfaction, especially in faith-based schools like Islamic schools. The 3 in order is supportive leadership that is approachable, supportive, and fosters a positive work environment. And we will hear the work environment and work culture theme emerges as one significant factor in attracting and creating an environment that will attract and keep teachers, qualified teachers in our schools. The second top factor is collaborative culture. So culture is a wide, consists of wide range of components and aspects, but specifically in healthy culture, a culture that encourages teamwork, collaboration, and peer support among teachers is found to attract and retain qualified teachers. The third top reason is professional development opportunities, and that's again confirm what the previous presenters mentioned, and that's availability of continuous professional growth and development programs. And we all know as formal educators and current educators that when we feel that the leadership is genuinely interested and genuinely invested in my growth, in my professional growth, that's a big attractor for us to stay in this environment. So on a practical level, how can a school administrator, a school principal, superintendent use this report? I have a couple of points for each stakeholder. I will start with the school administrator. So this report will help you understand the salary landscape nationwide and, of course, in your state to help determine competitive compensation packages that allow you to retain highly qualified teachers and effectively recruit the next generation of educators. Also, this report will help you advocate for increased compensation by presenting data to boards and funders to justify raising teacher salaries and benefits. The report will help identify school characteristics related to teacher compensation, retention, and recruitment that you may be able to influence directly. The report will provide staff with a variety of credentials and training options for professional growth. Also, very importantly, identify positions in your school that might require additional efforts in retention and recruitment strategies, which lead me to the next point, that it's really the responsibility of school leaders to promote data literacy and informed decision-making by collecting and analyzing data on various school characteristics. For teachers, how can we use this report? First of all, you can use it to advocate for a competitive compensation benefit and PD's opportunities. Also to ask for benefits that are not widely available and offered in Islamic schools, such as health insurance, retirement plans, paid leave, and professional development. Also, you can use this report to advise school leaders on importance of creating a positive and supportive work environment. The last stakeholders that would benefit from this report is policymakers and researchers. They can definitely identify utilizing this report, they can identify areas for additional research to uncover factors that not measured in our report and that may be impacting teacher recruitment and retention. Also, they can share key insights from this report to help Islamic education succeed, including ways to cultivate a more enriching, rewarding, and supportive environments for teachers. We keep hearing environment and school culture as a main attractor for qualified teachers. Also, the last point is to establish collaboration between Islamic schools, educational organizations, and researchers to share resources, strategies, and data to improve teacher recruitment and retention practices. And I would like to conclude by thanking ISPU and us at ISLA for taking on promoting data literacy and moving the needle in the importance of collecting and analyzing data in driving improvement and sustainable improvements in Islamic schools. Thank you so much for joining us today. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Samar. Last but not least, Mr. Habib Qadri, can you please share with us or re-emphasize, I believe some have hinted at it, but why and how can Islamic schools in the Muslim community create a culture where students and teachers are thriving? And I will emphasize on the why.
Assalamu alaikum. Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen, wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulil Kareem. First and foremost, thank you to ISPU, ISLA, SISNA, everyone coming together for this great research and data, because this is something that we need. The question is why? Why do we teach, right? Why do we even get into this field? And for all of us to realize that when we are educating, we're doing it for the kids. We're trying to give them the necessary tools so they can maximize to be the best, maximize their best potential of themselves, right? To be the best version of themselves from a spiritual standpoint, from an academic standpoint, from a social emotional standpoint, from a physical standpoint, because then when it comes to education, it's that whole process, right? The whole tarbiyah. So now, if we know for a fact for students that it is so important that we need to have them to be successful, there was a research in 2013 at University of Chicago where one of the Harvard students had did some research on school improvement, and they talked about 5 aspects that play a big part. I just want to kind of quickly go through. One was instructional guidance, right? One of the factors that they realized after, to have that strong school climate and culture, which is huge, is something I feel like in Islamic schools we have to emphasize more and more than ever before. So instructional guidance, who plays a big role about that? That's the teacher in the classroom. They have the most connection to the kids, even more than the leadership or the board members. But board members and leadership have to give them the tools to the teachers from an academic standpoint, from a resource standpoint, from that financial standpoint to make them feel good. So instructional guidance was number 1. Professional capacity, teacher training. Again, it goes back to the teachers, how important they are. Number 3, student-centered learning. Who makes sure that student-centered learning happens? Yes, we can have it from up top, but those teachers day-to-day, 180 days, 8 hours a day, making sure that success, inshallah, happens. Number 4, parent relations. Who plays a bigger part than connecting with parents and teachers every day by giving updates on what's happening with the assignments, what happened throughout the week, how their kids are doing, how they're doing academically, how they're doing spiritually, how they're doing emotionally, all plays a big part. And the last part they talked about is the leadership and governance. As Sister Sophia had talked about, how important than ever before when they do the accreditations is so important. The research that ISLA does about teacher and all these professional PDs they all do play a big part in this success. So when we know that all these factors are there and how important teachers are, and now than ever before for students, it's not just the academic success, but making sure they have the yaqeen and faith right now, because now you are at a point where now kids are questioning from their identity of who they are, to just being Muslim and the challenges that are happening overseas, to now and even in the political scene, to making sure the idea of environments and being in a place where they can thrive. And so you see, as from the research, that Islamic schools are more than ever, people are trying. There are a lot of waiting lists. So if you know that people are coming, we have to have the right, not just infrastructure with the building and the books, but the right individuals and teachers. But for make them to feel important, and as we have talked about, and even Dr. Seema had brought up, that we know they've also brought research that people don't go in the field of education. It's not about just the money that makes them be motivated, but it's how they feel, if they're being listened to, are they being heard, are they being able to grow? But when you have to understand, we could make that comment, but when we know Islamic schools are not even at the same average level, because even Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we want the basic necessities. If someone is day-to-day worried about their enough payment to take care of their family, then that could affect their teaching, because there's not that amount of financial benefits for them. So it's so important that we, as now, the last part I want to end with, is what can Islamic schools do? So if we're looking at all these and why, again, we brought this up, the importance, the students, and how important the why of making sure why we have to support our teachers to make sure our students are successful, then this is where these conversations, all of us as leaders, as board members, as principals, department heads, assistant principal, whoever you are, the 100, mashallah, 50, 60 people who are on this video and who are going to watch this later. Then we have to look at, are we at the leadership thinking about how every year, how are we increasing the salary? Do we have a salary scale? Are we looking at every 5-6 years to do an upgrade in the salary scale, just to see as the cost of living is going up, making sure that we are trying to at least keep up with what the challenges in your community and the costs that going to be there. If we have 401ks, are we going to slowly, can we match the 401ks? Can we think of some other opportunities? So looking at best practices that you might have heard from Sister Sophia and others, we have to more and say, hey, where are we? Every person right now needs to look at, where are you at your school, and what are some steps we need to do? Just like all of us, we need to go ahead and improve. So you got budgeting, allocating salaries, development, looking at business perks, working with things. So we have a thing where Like if you show your MCC card, you can get 10% off at this Muslim restaurant, at this clothing store, and all these other factors could play a big part. Performance bonuses. Maybe you're here for 5-10 years, you get a specific bonus. Every year you look at what's the evaluation techniques that maybe in certain categories. Classroom management, you scored well 3.0, you get percentage. Hey, instructional, you get some percentage. Our school environment, you get a certain percentage. So looking at all these factors, I think is going to be very important. So hopefully we understand that we do this for the sake of Allah, we do this for the kids, but we are, as institutions and educators, have to also look at how we can make it easier and better for our teachers to be successful, so they could be successful in teaching our future, not even future generation, right now. The time is now. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless all of you guys. Jazakallah khair. I know it's been a long presentation. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you so much, Brother Habib. Yes, it's been long, but it's hard to do such a topic with so many experts in a shorter period of time. And this is one of the beautiful things that we get to do at ISPU, is connect to so many experts in the field to help us help the community make sense of what the data points are saying. And as you could see from the Q&A box, there are more questions than we were able to answer. And so that's the beauty of the research, is it answers some questions, but it opens the box for more questions. And I hope the community understands the need for more research like this. So with the very limited time that we have left, I see that the Q&A box have been very engaged. A lot of the questions have been answered, but we have few left. So I'm gonna throw them here and see who wants to kind of jump in and answer any of that. Couple questions came about, the data point on hiring qualified teachers, and in schools that had more compensation packages or more, benefits that were offered, having a hard time hiring qualified teachers. What's the story with that? If anybody have any more insight, and the connection to culture of the Islamic schools that might be struggling with that. So I don't know who wants to take that first and just take a minute or so to answer that. Sophia, you want to go?
Yeah, I can speak to that a little bit. And I'm speaking not from having data, quantitative data, but qualitative data or anecdotal data. A lot of teachers, when we go to these schools and speak to them, they may not be getting the best financial package, but they're there because they love being there. They're aligned, the mission of the school resonates with them. They love working with kids, and we have to do right by them. So, sometimes schools are able to pay a very low salary and still have really great teachers, and they may not all be qualified, as I said. What the school has to do is provide them that training, the professional development, that atmosphere, the ability to network and have professional learning communities where they're always learning from each other. So I don't know if that addresses really the entire, the question, but I just want to really point out how important the environment is to retain and find teachers. And again, encouraging our students to go into teaching.
Thank you so much for that. Anyone else have anything they want to add to that? So the other question that we have is, are there any uniform or standard curriculums or general curriculum for teaching Islamic studies in the US?
Can I answer that one, Petra?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, we have schools historically that have copied the curriculum of public schools. And so we're teaching history books that are filled with, things that are Western and not appropriate really for Muslim education, but we don't have something to replace it with. We strive to have an Islamic worldview and a Quranic worldview, but we have a lot of work to do in our curriculum. Just like when I mentioned earlier that the teachers need both a licensure and experience in, teacher preparation, where they study theory and then study practice, managing children. We also want that principles of Islamic pedagogy and teaching, with awe and wonder, and making a sacred learning environment and being accountable. So there's a whole lot of work to do to get us from where we were when we started our schools to now take pride in making our own model. Our model needs to be distinct based on Islam and not based on a public school in our neighborhood. And this is really important. It has to do with both curriculum and who teaches. You can have a great curriculum, but poor teachers. You could also have a set of, great teachers. Well, in reverse, poor curriculum, poor teachers. Either one of the two will be an issue in the school. So I would encourage everybody to consider that book, Renewal of Islamic Culture, the one that I've spoke about. A renewal of our schools, because we have a lot of work to do, I think, to create our own model in every single school, inshallah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sima. There's one question here. Well, actually, there are a couple questions that I think speak to the importance of transparency between schools and parents' involvement. I know we're very short on time, but some of the questions around that was, why is it difficult to attract qualified teachers when parents are paying so much money for private Islamic schools? There's questions about the curriculum, culture. Can we just very quickly speak to the importance of transparency in Islamic school setting and the importance of parents and community members demanding transparency and accountability? Just so to ensure everything is up in the open for families, so they could make really good decisions about Islamic schools. So just the importance of transparency. Who wants to take that quickly? Brother Habib?
I can just kind of give a few thoughts here. So I think it's very important as educators, or especially on the leaders, that we have to look at how do we make sure there's transparency at all levels. For example, one of the unique things maybe about our school board, all of our teachers get to vote for one teacher to be on our board as a rep, right? So now they get to know what's exactly happening, why we're making the decisions that we are from a financial standpoint and stuff. So that becomes two. One. Number two, having parent reps. So we have two parent reps that also come from the parents. So they also have a better understanding, hey, what's going on? So when the decisions are making, they're not just, they're just people who are part of the masjid board or some other board, but they don't really know what's going on. So I think that by themselves helps one aspect. Number two, I think it's a lot of times when people don't know, they're going to make assumptions. It happens all the time, especially within the WhatsApp generation, where someone makes a comment and then it becomes all about why this is happening, right? So I think it's very important for us to also kind of keep in mind to really have individuals where you are giving updates on why the financials are the way they are. And because sometimes people don't realize, when people think there's high salaries, $7,000, $8,000, where most private schools are $15,000, $20,000, where public schools, just to run the schools, about $15,000 a year. So if you look at your district, or if you look at your taxes, you'll realize how much money your district is getting. So when we're maybe charging $5,000 to $6,000, and knowing that mostly about 30-40% we're fundraising for, sometimes we have to remind parents about that, and then tell them all the other factors we're doing, and then showing the scores that we're getting are competing with other public schools. I think those are very important. So transparency from financials to understanding from what our grades are. So even not just our parents, but even the people who are working with us, the teachers, going back to them for understanding where we are and how we're trying to improve to make their financial things better, how they're making the school better, from the infrastructure to the parents, and even telling the students what's going on, and the community, I think will go a long way.
Thank you so much. I just launched a poll to get feedback from the attendees. We are getting close to our time here, so I want to thank all the panelists, all the organizations represented here, everyone who came and stayed with us this whole time. I know it's a very long conversation. And my invitation to all of us is, one, we will send a follow-up email to everyone who registered with the recording of this webinar, the report, and links to the organizations represented here, so you have access to their information and directly get in touch. Two, we have a lot of exciting research coming out of ISPU this summer and fall beyond Islamic schools that touches on so many other topics impacting the American Muslim community. So stay tuned, stay in touch, and keep an eye on your inbox, because we will have more conversations. Three, this is not the end of this conversation. This is literally the beginning of this conversation. This is the launch of this very new report by ISPU and ISLA the charge for all of you is reflect on this conversation, think of where you could implement some of the things that we've learned today, but also what other conversations can you have in your own communities and in your own school and your own family about this topic. And then, of course, be an ambassador for facts and accurate information. So take this report and the information that we shared with you today and share it with those who were not with us today. There are a lot of other Islamic school teachers, administrators, family members, and community members who are across the country that probably didn't have access today, but you have access to them. So please make sure that you are sharing this information. And the last ask I have for all of you is do get in touch with the experts here. These are the people that are doing this work every day on the ground. They have been doing this for a long time and they're passionate about it. So do get in touch with them to learn from them, to learn best practices, and to make sure that you're bringing those to your fields. So again, thank you to all the panelists and to our audiences, and be safe and enjoy the rest of the summer.